Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and now I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. As you can see, we are in my car, and based on the window behind me, it is dark, it is rainy, it is the perfect kind of weather for the night before Halloween and then going into Halloween morning. I'm sure by the time you're watching it, it's probably Halloween, but tonight's episode, because it's Wednesday now, you know what we're talking about, was Halloween Eve. And it's another setup episode, but gets us building to something that is still, I think, pretty interesting. So it's not wasting time, man. Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat? We're getting ready to dive in, spoiler free and then spoiler filled, into AHS 1984. Episode 7, The Lady in White. That's right, it's American Horror Story Night, folks. And I'm not gonna lie to you. Last week was the 100th episode, and it was I didn't really stress it too much, but it was a little disappointing in the fact that, you expected something a little bit bigger. But I really liked what they were setting up, and I liked how clever the episode was on the overall. Then you figure, oh, well, Halloween Eve, a Halloween episode, Halloween always big on American Horror Story. And tonight's episode also was not very big, but more of a setup to hopefully something that is still pretty interesting and hopefully highly entertaining. We got some more showdowns coming up next week, but before we can get there, we got to talk about this episode on a spoiler-free kind of consensus. And like I said, this one was another setup episode. We do learn some big pieces of information. We get a couple more big pieces of our puzzle to kind of put into place as we start to see how this season is kind of shaping itself out. And, we get some backstory and a couple surprises here and there. And there, was some good stuff. And like I said, I think what they're setting up as far as bringing everybody back to Camp Redwood for this festival, and how we get all of our players back to Camp Redwood, or at least close to getting back to Camp Redwood. I enjoyed that stuff, but for a Halloween episode, I was hoping it'd be a little bit bigger, especially after a fairly mild 100th episode. But if what they're setting up next week goes down the way that they're setting it up, then maybe these two setup episodes are okay, because I think next week could be a lot of fun. But there certainly were a couple surprises, and the main realm of surprises came with cameos. So if you want to know who made me do these things, oh my god, what's that? Yeah. Well, if you watched the episode, then you did know. But if you don't know why I was surprised by these two people, well, what are you doing, man? Go watch the episode, man. We get episode 7 in your back pocket. Like I said, it's another setup episode, but what it's setting up, I like. And, they do some nice things in the episode, including a couple really nice surprise cameos. So if you don't know who I'm talking about, go watch the episode. And we're getting ready to just dive into this bad boy, because like I said, this is a pretty simple episode. Not a lot of real complicated stuff, but a couple cool pieces and things I want to dive into. So if you haven't seen the episode, exit stage left, man. And if you have seen the episode, well, now it's time to get into this bad boy. So here we go, baby. Spoiler time in 3, 2, 1. Let's dive into The Lady in White. And we're not going to waste any time, man. We find out that The Lady in White, the title of the episode, is this, some of the episodes this year I've been like, I don't understand the title. This one we certainly do, because she is a major player and the person where the curse of Camp Redwood all started. And it's so funny, because I'm watching the opening, the cold open, and we go back to, I think, 1942 or 48, somewhere in the 40s, and it's Camp Golden Star, and we're following, a couple kids, and you're like, oh, okay, we're going back to the camp, earlier, before it was Camp Redwood, because it's very obvious that's the same camp, and we're kind of hanging out, and our first cameo drops, the one that made me do this. Lily Rabe! I love every time she kind of pops up. And what we end up finding out is that she's got these two kids, and she loves the younger one, clearly has a lot of issues with the older one, who's, kind of overweight, and he's got glasses, and I should have realized who it was immediately. It took me like a segment and a half to realize who it was. But of course, it is Mr. Jingles. And we kind of learned that as soon as they cut to Mr. Jingles afterwards, I was like, oh, duh. I should have put that together during that first segment. But what we find out is like she, as much as she hates him, she kind of puts him in charge of, like, watch out for your little brother. And they go down the water, and he's like, asks some girls, he's like, oh, how's the water? And like, it's cold, but you got enough blubber, so you'll be fine. Like, you'll stay warm. And he basically is like, and his brother's like, I want to go swimming. He's like, we're not going swimming. But then he sees the lifeguard leave with like one of the other counselors, this really cute girl, and he tells his brother to stay put and goes and follows. And his brother naturally goes swimming. And while he's watching these two kids have sex, Bobby, his brother, is swimming around, and some guy is starting up a boat, and the boat's starting to back up, and you see it coming, and then this happens. Oh no! Oh, dude, it was just like you saw it coming. You're like, no, not the kid. And then blood everywhere, man. The propeller just chews his face up. And as soon as you come back, you're like, oh, everybody shows up. And naturally, once they get the body out, they kind of cover it with a blanket or a sheet. And then the mom shows up, and she is like livid, screaming at everybody, like, where was the lifeguard? What did you do to your little brother? You're supposed to be watching him. Everybody is responsible. And she's screaming in this little kid's face. And like the whole time, I'm just sitting there going, oh man, this is bad. Like, no wonder, like the camp is cursed, because like, look at what started. Like, the first bloodshed at the camp was an innocent boy in a pretty brutal fashion. And then this rage from the mom. And that's where the cold open ends, and you're just like, man, this is interesting. I wonder how this is going to tie in. And then it wasn't until, like I said, afterwards, I kind of put it all together when I finally saw Jingles on screen, and this happened.
20 years before.
Oh, he's the fat kid.
This blood curse began.
Oh,
when we first opened this place, it went by a different name.
I sit there, man. I'm just like, I can't believe that, like, you didn't put it together. It was so blatantly obvious, especially once we saw him. But when we came back from break, we did not start with Jingles. We started with Brooke, who we see detoxing with Donna. The cocktail that Donna cooked up takes about 3 days to kick out of your system. And while it can mask things and make things seem like other things, it messes you up pretty good internally. So you go through this kind of whole detox situation, and Brooke doesn't trust her at all. And Donna's like, come on, like, I'm trying to do right. Like, I want to fix all this, because like, I do believe in like something after this, and I want to end up on the good side of that stuff and not on the bad side of that stuff. And Brooke kind of doesn't buy into it until she finally kicks it, right? Like, when she finally kicks it, they're able to kind of have a conversation, and she kind of lays it out for Donna, where she's like, I missed the 80s. I spent like almost a decade, 8 years in the cell, and I missed, like, they said like the 80s was like the America morning, and she's like, and my morning was in a cell. And Donna's like, you know what, I'm gonna bring you someplace where the 80s are always alive. And she takes her to a roller rink, and it's wonderful, man, because like, albeit a big 80s thing, roller rinks, growing up for me in the 90s, roller rinks were also really still big, man. Had a lot of birthday parties. Love that. And it was just like, it was bright and vibrant and colorful, very 80s. And you're sitting there, and then all of a sudden, the second cameo hits, and I do this one. Oh my God, what's that? Oh my gosh, that's Dylan McDermott. It is. I'm just sitting there, and it's like, it's hard because he's got a mustache, right? So you immediately are thinking Trevor, because Trevor's really been the only one with like a solid mustache, and this mustache is solid. But he's got longer hair, and he's got sunglasses on, and he's in the background as Donna and Brooke are kind of coming off the rink. And immediately I'm just like, That's Dylan McDermott. Oh my gosh, Dylan McDermott is making a cameo this episode too. Like, man, bring back the OG Murder House crew. Now, granted, Lily Rabe's been in a bunch of the seasons over the course of time, and so is Dylan McDermott. He's popped in and out. But in a season that's feeling a lot like Murder House, we see two of the OG Murder House actors show up in cameos. And you know, it was just like, it was a nice little thing to see. And, you know, McDermott's character is named Bruce, and he's kind of eyeing the girls and, you know, ask them for a ride. Like, oh, you're going to Camp Redwood to, like, that festival? Like, you think I get a ride? And they're like, nah, man, we're not doing that. And then naturally they get outside and their car is dead and it won't start. And you know, you're like, this guy did it. But how he would have known that was their car means he had to have been telling them from before they got into the skate rink. But, you know, then he walks by, he's like, oh, you know, I can help take a look for you. I bet you it's this. He's like, oh, yeah, I see your problem. And it's like your distributor cap is loose. If tighten it up, give it sure enough, it starts. And then he's like, you know, I'm just, you know, out here trying to help you. Man, I believe in karma. What goes around comes around. And, you know, he goes to walk off, and Donna and Brooke kind of look at each other, and Donna's like, come on back, man. And they're going to give him a ride. And the minute they do that, you're like, oh, it's a bad idea. It's not going to end well. And sure enough, they're kind of going, and Bruce starts getting kind of creepy. He says some weird stuff, and Brooke is just like, you're out of here, man. Like, Donna, pull over. We're getting rid of this creep. Like, you're done. And they pull over, and he just like, Dylan McDermott, man, he can be so cool sometimes, but he's just sitting there with a cigarette. He's like, I don't think you're gonna kick me out. He's like, it's frying outside, man. I'm not getting out of the car. And then, you know, because they're on the side of the road in the middle of a highway in the middle of the desert, a cop pulls up behind them and is like, you know, is everything okay? And they're like, oh, we just met this guy. We don't really know. And the cop is getting suspicious, and McDermott shoots him, gets out of the car, like, to finish him off. The girls take off. He kills this cop, and you're like, oh, that's gonna come back around. Like, the girls, they escape, but you're like, you got that gut feeling like it's not over. And that's like right as we go to, you know, our second break. And when we come back this time, once again, you know, we're not following right back where we picked up, but instead we see someone dressed as Jingles. We see the keys, and we see the you know, the rain jacket, and you're like, oh, Jingles. And then you see a kid, and you're like, oh, it must be Halloween. Like, kids are dressing up. And then you're like, wait a minute, no. And sure enough, then Mr. Jingles comes, and he's like, wait a minute. And like, you forget, like, there were so many people killed on the campground. You forget, like, oh yeah, all the Jingles kids, like, got those guys all dressed as Jingles, like, back around the first time. They all got killed, so they would all still be there. And sure enough, like, when he is talking to Jingles is like, I know you. And the other two show up, and they tackle Jingles, and they're like, we're gonna kill this mofo, man. This is the guy that killed us. This is why we're stuck here. And the fat kid is, you know, the one that got pushed onto all the spikes. He goes, whoa, Montana said no killing. So they tie him up, bring him over to Montana, and this is where you find out that the dead here at the camp have all gotten together, and they kind of give you their backstory real quick. Again, one of those little puzzle pieces that we kind of need as we fill out this big puzzle. And we kind of find out that, like, for them, you know, like, days pass like minutes, you know, years pass like days, and there's kind of no concept of time. And early on, the first months, they just kind of wandered around all feeling sorry for themselves. And then, you know, we saw Montana and Xavier finally came around and started killing people. And what they've decided now as a collective group is they, you know, when the girl that Xavier killed on the dock ended up getting news headlines, they're like, well, now we got this festival. If we kill everybody at the festival, all sorts of paranormal people will be coming here, and they'll figure out how to get us out of here. Like, how we get out. How do we escape from the camp? And now you're like, okay, so it's not just about killing random people when we get to the festival. There's an actual plan, and the dead, they want out, which is, you know, understandable because they're kind of trapped in this limbo. So I thought that was an interesting tidbit to kind of pick up as we're watching them. And then we cut back to the 40s again as Jingles starts to tell the story. Because while he's sitting there, they're like, yeah, there's a woman in white who chases us, and freaks everybody out. And she's the only one that's not with the group. And he's like, I know who it is. It's my mom. And the minute like he started to talk, that was when we saw that reaction before. I was like, oh, he's the fat kid. Didn't put it together at all until like right then. And then he kind of tells you the story where you pick back up where we left off at the end of the cold open, and he kind of comes into a cabin, and like, or him and his mom are staying in a cabin together, and like he hears a scream or a noise, kind of wakes him up, and his mom's not there, and he goes to look, and he walks into another cabin, and it's just like the night, it's just like that first one, just everybody massacred, man. Every counselor, everybody that was standing there, everybody that Lily Rabe's character yelled at saying you were responsible, all dead. Just every single one of them. And like, it's one of those things where she's like, come here. And he is scared of her because she's never treated him well. And sure enough, he goes to run. She goes after him, stabs him in the leg, man, which is why he has the limp. Like, we finally get to find, boom, smack that puzzle piece in there. Why has he been running around with limp all these years? Stabbed in the leg by his own mother. And then he gets up and ends up like taking the knife and kills her. He kills his own mom. So like we had this idea where like, he was innocent, and Margaret put all that stuff on him with the original camp killings, and then he went to jail, and then he killed people this time around because he thought he had killed people last time around. Then you find out that he's innocent. Well, not completely. Him murdering his mother is the blood that soaks into the ground. It's born in rage. The death of the mother is born in that rage because of the death of the son. And that starts the curse. And you're just kind of sitting there, and it's like I said, it's not like an amazing episode, but puzzle pieces that like now we're like, oh my gosh, all this stuff about this character, why he would think that he might even have that evil in him, like he killed his own mom. And poor Jingles, man, he's had a rough go. And after he kind of tells all of that stuff, they kind of release him, and he goes into the shed. He finds like a toy that either was his or maybe it was Bobby's. And it's like the one cabin like space that hasn't really been touched. And all of a sudden, boom, Lily Rabe appears. And they start to have this convo where you're like, okay, maybe there's some sort of reconciliation that's gonna happen. Nah, man, like, you just find out that poor Mr. Jingles' mom is like, she hates him so much, man. She is terrible at the beginning of this conversation that they have, where she kind of goes through and like tells him, like, he kind of brings up Bobby, and she goes, don't you say his name. And you find out that Bobby wasn't the beginning of the curse. It was indeed the mom. And the mom has now been stuck there because Jingles killed her. But Bobby's not there. And she said to live all this time without Bobby. And one day she's like, I sensed him. I could smell him. I thought he was here. And I look, and it's you. It's grown-up him. And she sees him and Margaret. And it infuriates her so much that she is the one that gives the push. Like, all of a sudden, like, this is where I'm like, it's a smaller episode, but these puzzle pieces are so important, and these little clever things that continue to extend out the season, and very much like those early years of American Horror Story, is keeping the story contained, but finding ways to reveal new layers and new bits and pieces. And like I said, like a week or two ago, those first 5 episodes or so felt like one movie. And now these last 2-3 episodes have felt very much like the sequel to that movie. And I thought it's been really impressive how they're doing it and the way they're building the story. But you find out that she gave Margaret the push, and her whole angle was like, I want to take the thing you loved and use it to destroy you. And you're just like, like literally in my notes, I typed in all capitals, wow, she hates him. It's crazy. And before we can get any further there, we jump back over to Donna and Brooke, and they're kind of driving, and they come up to a stoplight, and all of a sudden you see a car start moving fast, and then all of a sudden the Sitdown was reacting like this.
Cop car, he's gonna hit him.
Oh no! boom, man. Like I said, you knew Dylan McDermott was going to come back. Like, he killed the cop. He was obviously going to get in that car. Rams the crap out of the car. Knocks them both out. We go to another break, and we come back, and we see that Dylan is sitting next, sitting shotgun next to Brooke, and he's, she kind of wakes up, and he's like, so you have a decision to make here. I'm going to kill you if you don't drive. And then I'm going to drive, and your friend who's tied back there is going to get dragged. And he proceeds to tell this, like, how at 40 miles an hour, like, certain things start to happen. By the time you get to 50, skin just peels off your body. By the time you're, like, hitting, like, 55, 60, like, pieces of your body are just breaking off, and you're, like, trying to lift your face up. And if it bumps, boo, and you're just, like, listening to this, and you're like, oh, my God, dude, like, he's going to make Brooke drag Donna, and like, while Donna and Brooke kind of had a reconciliation, you're like, you know what, maybe Brooke will do it, right? Like, she hates Donna just as much as everybody else from the first go around, and sure enough, like, he's got a shotgun to her head, and sure enough, she goes to put it in, but she doesn't go drive, slams on the gas and starts going backwards, slams McDermott's face into the dashboard. Donna lays down as it rolls over, and then Brooke does this crazy thing where she takes the shotgun, goes like this, it shoots this way, steals his gun, shoots him in the leg, and I'm just like, get him, Brooke, man! Like, I mean, I literally was like, get him, Brooke! Oh, get him, Brooke! Get him! Oh, nice. Oh, man. And like, you're just like, oh man, that's awesome. Like, good for her. And once again, like, the getting out of trouble with him, only rather than like taking off, Donna jumps behind him, starts strangling him to death, and then Brooke, I loved it, man. Like, Brooke, all those years in prison, like, messed Brooke up a little bit. And she was like, no, don't do it. It's too fast. We're not going to kill him right now. And I'm like, oh, she's going to drag him. And, of course, we don't get to see it right away because we cut over to Trevor. We see Margaret. Margaret's been walking around the camp as they're getting ready for, like, the festival stuff to be going on. And, they're walking down, and it's her, and it's Trevor, and it's her little friend, I think Sydney, like her little assistant. And, they're talking, just different logistical things. And Trevor says something to piss her off, and she says, I was like, I had to type it down, man, because the line was so funny. She goes to Trevor, she's like, the bathroom's covered in pine needles. Why don't you take that pendulum of a dick of yours and go sweep it up and, use it for something good? Leslie Grossman can be just so wickedly funny with her deliveries. And her deliveries as Margaret, especially to Trevor, have been fantastic. And here we are now, 7 episodes in, and we're still making comments about Trevor's dick. I'm telling you, when this guy finally goes, it's gonna be involved. There'd be no reason to keep pointing it out if somehow it doesn't play into how he dies. I'll be so disappointed if that doesn't happen, man. I'm clinging. I am clinging on to that theory that I came up with after episode 1. But really, really funny. And then why Trevor kind of F's off, as he's getting ready to walk away, he sees Montana, and then a bus pulls up, and you get this, like, weird guy. He kind of looks like a Billy Idol type. He's got blonde hair, but then there's, like, dark in it. And he's called Kajagoogoo is the name of his band. That's Margaret's, like, big to do. Like, not Billy Idol. She's all about Kajagoogoo. And as they drive by, like, Montana obviously isn't there. Trevor kind of wanders off. Sure enough, finds her, and he's like, I thought you were dead. And she's like, I am. He's like, I don't even care. I didn't realize what I was missing until I saw you. And they start going at it, and you're like, the good old days, man, of Montana and Trevor. And while they kind of start to go at it, we cut back to Brooke, who is not dragging Dylan McDermott. No. Poor Bruce is not getting that treatment. Like he said, it was scorching outside. He didn't want to be out there. They tie him to a telephone pole like this, and then Brooke cuts both of his thumbs off and goes, you're not hitchhiking anymore, mister. And they leave him on the side of the road. I was like, the whole episode, I was just like, get him, Brooke. Like, good for you. Like, figuring your stuff out, like, reconciling with Donna, and then just, like, sticking it to Dylan McDermott, who could have, like, easily ended, both of their lives. So it'd be interesting, like if it was just a true cameo and we no longer see McDermott, which also, by the way, that he was based on a real serial killer, or that was a real serial killer that was kind of coming after Ramirez, and you guys know, I would did a quick search, I couldn't find anybody. I was like, oh, maybe it's just something they made for the show. But if he was based on something, or more about the serial killer that maybe he could be, let me know that down in the comments, and we'll get to that later as well. But I kind of love that. And Brooke gets ready to go hitch to the festival. And Donna's like, no, I'm coming with you, man. I got to see this all the way to the end. And this is one of those things, like I mentioned. I love how this season has been able to reinvent itself in ways that continue to tell the same story, right? We're not taking one of these hard, 90-degree turns. And we're finding ways to bring everybody back. Not have everybody play two characters to keep the cast in it all season. We're getting to use all the characters that we've got to build time with. And I think it's one of the things that's making the season as a whole work really, really well. And as much as we would want some of these episodes to maybe be a little bit bigger, 100th, the Halloween, I think it's setting up to what could be a solid finish, hopefully. At least a solid looking episode next week. But before we can get there, we have to find out that, of course, Mr. Ramirez has indeed arrived. And he comes out to that Kaja Gugu band, and he sees him, and he's talking to the blonde guy. He's like, look, man, you made a deal with the devil. He's like, look, I'm here for Satan. He's got the pentagram on his hand, and he's like, that time to cash that deal in, man. If you ain't gonna cash it in, well, And next thing you know, that guy's dead. The whole band is dead, and you're like, oh, Ramirez is back. And then we close the episode with the two characters that would make the most sense to close the episode with. We go back to Jingles and his mom, the lady in white, the name of the episode, and they're finishing their conversation. What started out so dastardly and wicked from her, kind of levels back out, and they kind of have this legitimate conversation where, he tells her that, he's lived with Bobby his whole life. He thinks about him every day. He named his son after him. And then Ray digs him one more time and is like, yeah, I feel bad for your son because you're his father. And again, it's just kind of sticking it to him in a way where he's like, she's like, you should just leave. Just go back to your kid. And he's like, I can't. I have to face Ramirez. She's like, Ramirez got to deal with the devil, man. He's got power. He's not beatable. And you made a deal with him. If you made a deal with him, you're going to have to pay the piper. She's like, there's only one thing that you can do. And this is kind of the one point in the combo where it kind of leveled out and they were almost having this mutual understanding. And she kind of walks away and he's sitting there and he calls out. It's a really beautiful moment for Jingles. He calls out to the lake. He's like, Bobby, I know you're there, man. If you can hear me, I just want you to know, I'm not going to let my son have to deal with me, and what I can cause, the way you do. And the next thing you know, man, he's like, watch what I do. Oh, no. He's totally going to kill himself so that he can beat Ramirez as a ghost there, because then Ramirez can't kill him if he's already dead. Oh, man. Seppuku style. Seppuku style, I think that's how you call it. The Japanese martial art guys that commit suicide across guts himself, and you're just like, but very much like I did in that reaction, you put it together oh, that's how he's gonna go at Ramirez. Ramirez can't die because he's working with the devil. Well, how you stop that? I'll kill myself, and then I'll fight him as a ghost. And sure enough, when we see the previews for next week, we are setting up some big things, man. A final showdown between our two main serial killers from the season to this point. So we get a second go around. You know how much I love that first one. I hope we up that game, man, with the fact that they both know that they can't really die. I'm hoping for a lot of fun there. And then they also kind of hint out, Donna talks about how there's always the girl that survives. You have that person who survives the whole thing, the girl. And who is the girl? But obviously Brooke. She's the only one that makes the most sense. She really is the innocent. All season long, she's been the innocent. Even though we've thought that maybe she wasn't. I think she genuinely is, and she could be the girl who survives everything at the end, which, would make sense based on what was laid out at the beginning and would fit very much in the 80s slasher realm. So, like I said, while the quote-unquote Halloween episode wasn't, like, gigantic, I thought it was really, really solid, and I think it sets up what should be another fun episode. And the fact that everybody is gunning for Margaret is gonna be so satisfying when it finally hits. Like, I can't wait to watch. I hope Trevor gets to finish her off, man. Or because I don't think it's gonna be Jingles. It could be Jingles, but I think him and Ramirez have got that going on. But I don't know. I'm pumped. Like I said, I think what the season's been doing has been really, really good. The way it presented the beginning of the season, feeling very much like a contained story movie. This seems like a continuation of that first contained story, very much like a sequel. I've said it a bunch of times. And I think it's just the most fascinating thing I've seen Horror Story do in a while. And it's really, whether the episodes are big or they're up or they're down, they are capturing the 1980s slasher vibe really, really well. And we've had a couple more mediocre episodes, set-up episodes. Let's go, Horror Story. Episode 8, let's pick it back up. Give me something big to get me excited for the end of this roller coaster as we start to careen, right? We're right at the crest, man. Episode 8 should start that downward fall of the roller coaster where we're just holding on for dear life until we get to the end. And I hope that's where we're going. The question is, what are you thinking, man? Are you hoping that? Are you hoping that we are getting to the top of the roller coaster and about to come flying down and get some more craziness, bigger things going on? What did you think of the episode? Like I said, we've had kind of two smaller episodes in 2 points of the year, and in the course of American Horror Story that you thought might be bigger. So is that bothering you? Did it bug you last week? Did it bug you this week that this one didn't rebound even more after the 100th episode was kind of a setup episode? Or are you at least digging what they're setting up? Are you hoping that we're going to have some fun? What's working, man? What were you digging in this episode? Were you surprised at any point? Did you see everything coming? Are you pumped for Ramirez and Jingles number 2? Right? We're boxing, man. This is showdown number 2 between these two. And we saw Jingles win before, the devil stuff brought Ramirez back. But everything that you're thinking about this episode and where you think we might be headed, if it's good, if it's bad, if you're in, are you almost out? Are you ready to bail on the American Horror Story car? Are you having a fun time with this 80s slasher style to the season? Let me know everything you're thinking down below in the comments. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. I love seeing those, especially during my American Horror Story stuff. And then finally, if you are new and you want to get in on the C-Man and his American Horror Story stuff, well, go back, man. Watch all of the great content that we've got going on this season. Get all my thoughts about everything that's going on. You can catch up on episodes 1 through 6. You'll see some of them scattered throughout, the video, and you'll see some of them at the end of the video as well. Let's go back, rewatch those, man. You want to follow me the rest of the season? There's only one easy way to do that. Go over there, man. You hit that subscribe button. Come join Cinema Sitdown Squad, and then every Wednesday, the rest of the way, you can get all of my thoughts right out the gate, man. As soon as the episode is over, I'm sitting down, putting this bad boy together, hoping to get it out within a couple hours. So if you want to do that, man, subscribing is the easiest way to follow me for all my American Horror Story stuff, as well as anything I'm talking about, movies or television. I've seen a couple good movies getting ready to talk about for this week from last week. So if you want that, hit the subscribe button. If you want to know when those videos drop, you hit that little bell that follows. That's the alert button. And you can get alerts every time I make a new video. So for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, another episode of American Horror Story in the books. I am, of course, the C-Man, and I am signing off, man. Happy Halloween, everybody. Peace. Get that candy. Hey, what's up, everybody? C-Man back real quick. I realized after I finished my review that I totally forgot to mention something that I did think was kind of funny and appropriate, being that it was Halloween. At one point during the episode, there's TV on, and what's on TV, I believe it's the lady in white's kids are watching TV, and you see like a sheet over a body, and a doctor comes over, and the body jumps up, and they're like dressed like a werewolf. And then you see him like take off a mask, and it's a kid. And then there's another kid dressed as a doctor jumping up and down behind him, and it's freaking Doogie Howser. I was like, did they just drop the Doogie, like a clip from a Doogie Howser Halloween episode in what should have been the American Horror Story 1984 Halloween episode? I just thought that was really clever and cool. Growing up watching Doogie Howser, that was when I was introduced to NPH. And I thought it was cool to kind of drop that in there and had like a Halloween bit to it. So that's it, man. I just wanted to throw that in there at the end. Now, you guys enjoy. Get out of here. See you later. Enjoy your Halloweens. Peace. Well, you guys are still here. You must be looking for some more content. Well, don't worry. C-Man's got you covered, man. You got videos like this guy and this guy. And if you haven't yet, and you want to come check out all the C-Man goodies, join the Cinema Sit Down Squad, man. Hit that subscribe button. And